I'm standing at the airport, my bag awkwardly slung over my shoulder, waiting to see my in-laws after what felt like years, when suddenly they hand me a child, silent, unmoving, just staring. Then 5 minutes later, she whispers 7 words that send a chill down my spine. You're not who you think you are. Before we continue, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I honestly love reading each one. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, enjoy the story. I never expected the day to start this way. The airport, normally a place full of hustle and chatter, felt strangely quiet as I stood by the gate. My name's Paula Harris. I'm a 52-year-old accountant who spends more time balancing other people's books than dealing with my own life. And right now I'm balancing more than just numbers. The flight had been delayed by 2 hours, which gave me plenty of time to settle into the dreary terminal, scrolling through my phone. I've always hated airports. Too many people, too many announcements that never seem to make sense. But there I was, in the middle of it all, waiting for my in-laws to arrive from their vacation. I hadn't seen Harold and Elizabeth in nearly a year. They'd gone off to Italy, and we had all but forgotten each other's faces in that time. It wasn't that we didn't care about each other, it's just, well, life had its way of keeping things distant. I had never been particularly close to Harold's family anyway, especially since the whole Paula versus the in-laws saga began back when I married him over 25 years ago. My in-laws weren't exactly thrilled about me being with their only son, mostly because I wasn't what they envisioned for him. They never outright said it, but the way they looked at me, the questions that always seemed to follow, made it clear. I wasn't one of them, too independent, too different. They had their own way of doing things, and I always felt like I was intruding on their picture-perfect family. So there I was, standing in the cold, staring at my phone when I heard it, Harold's voice, loud enough to pierce through the hum of the terminal. "Paula, over here!" He waved at me, his big frame coming toward me with that goofy grin of his. Elizabeth was beside him, looking as tight-lipped as always. She didn't wave. She never waved. And then, as if scripted from some bizarre sitcom, they handed me the child. A small, blonde girl, maybe 5 or 6, clutching the leg of Elizabeth's coat. Her wide blue eyes looked up at me, and she didn't speak. Her face was blank, almost expressionless. She didn't even blink. "Her name's Lily," Elizabeth said quickly, her voice stiff as usual. "We were hoping you could keep an eye on her for a while. We have some business to attend to." I blinked, my mouth dry. "Wait, what? I didn't know you had—" "It's a long story, Paula," Harold interrupted, shooting me a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Just keep her entertained for a bit, will you?" And just like that, they turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd, leaving me with this silent child. Hi, Lily," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "Are you okay?" The little girl didn't respond. She didn't even move. Her fingers curled tightly around my sleeve as if holding on for dear life. I glanced around, half expecting Harold and Elizabeth to come back and explain what was going on, but they didn't. They were gone, leaving me to deal with this mute child. And then, in the stillness, something strange happened. Lily's lips parted slightly, and, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said 7 words that made my heart freeze. "You're not who you think you are." I froze. The world around me seemed to vanish as those words echoed in my head. I looked down at her, but she just stared back, her face still empty, her expression unreadable. What did you say?" I asked, my voice shaky. But she said nothing else, just continued to hold my sleeve like it was the only thing anchoring her to reality. The words felt wrong, out of place, like a puzzle piece that didn't fit. My brain struggled to process them. My eyes scanned the terminal, hoping to find Harold or Elizabeth, to make sense of what was happening. But they were gone. I looked down at Lily again. Her blue eyes were still locked on mine, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something off about her. My chest tightened. What was I supposed to do now? I stood there, trying to process what had just happened. Lily's words were like a cold wind that cut through me, but the more I tried to shake it off, the heavier they became. "You're not who you think you are." Over and over they repeated in my mind like a loop, like some kind of warning that I didn't understand. Lily remained silent. Her fingers were still gripping my sleeve tightly, her little knuckles white, her eyes never leaving mine. She seemed so small, yet there was an unexplainable weight in her gaze, like she knew something I didn't, or wasn't supposed to. I shifted my bag from one shoulder to the other, unsure of what to do next. My first instinct was to find Harold and Elizabeth, but they were nowhere in sight. The crowd around me seemed to move in slow motion, the usual airport chaos muted by the strangeness of the situation. "What do you mean by that?" I asked, my voice quieter now, unsure if I really wanted to know the answer. Lily didn't respond, not even a blink. She just stood there, frozen, as if her body had forgotten how to move. It was unsettling. I tried to laugh it off, shaking my head. "I think someone needs a nap," I muttered under my breath. But the words didn't sound right, not even to me. I was stalling, trying to convince myself that this was all just a weird misunderstanding, some random moment of confusion. But deep down I knew it wasn't. Suddenly, a woman's voice interrupted my thoughts. "Excuse me, is everything okay?" I looked up to see a tall, well-dressed woman with dark hair standing in front of me. She had a polite but concerned smile on her face, though her eyes were locked on Lily. Something about her presence felt almost purposeful. "I'm fine," I said, forcing a smile. "Just taking care of my niece here." The woman's gaze softened, but she didn't move. "If you need help with anything, I'm around. It's just... well, I've been seeing you two for a while now, and I couldn't help but notice the little one hasn't said a word." I frowned, glancing down at Lily. "Yeah, she's not feeling very talkative today, I guess." The woman's eyes narrowed slightly, then flicked back to Lily. She seemed to study her for a moment longer than was comfortable, before giving a small nod. "Okay, just keep an eye on her, okay?" I raised an eyebrow, feeling the strange weight of her words. Something about her felt familiar, but not in a good way. It was like I was being warned without being told why. Before I could say anything else, the woman turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Her words lingered, like an aftertaste I couldn't quite place. I shook it off, looking down at Lily again. "Hey, it's okay," I said softly. "We'll find your parents, all right?" But when I looked into her eyes, I knew something was wrong. She wasn't just quiet. There was a coldness in her expression, an eerie stillness that unsettled me. My hand instinctively reached out to her, brushing the back of her head in an attempt to comfort her. And that's when it happened. Her head tilted slightly, almost imperceptibly, like she was listening to something far away. Then, without any warning, her lips parted again, and the words she whispered made my blood run cold. "You've been lied to." I froze, staring down at her in disbelief. "What?" Lily's eyes flicked up at me, and for a moment I thought I saw something shift in them. It wasn't fear. It wasn't sadness. It was understanding. Like she knew something about me, something that hadn't even occurred to me yet. The words lingered, thick and heavy in the air, and I felt the weight of them settle over me, a burden I hadn't asked for. But I couldn't ignore them. I stepped back, my mind racing, but before I could process what was happening, I heard a familiar voice. "Paula, there you are!" Harold and Elizabeth were back, walking briskly toward me. Elizabeth's expression was still tight, but Harold had that easygoing grin that always made him seem like everything was fine, even when it wasn't. I turned to them, trying to mask my unease. "Hey, she said something kind of strange." Harold waved it off, his grin faltering for just a second. "She's just a kid. Kids say weird things sometimes. You know how it is." I wanted to ask more, but something about the way Harold spoke, how he was avoiding eye contact, made my stomach churn. It felt like there was something they weren't telling me. "Well, she's all yours now," I said, trying to smile, but I knew it was forced. Elizabeth took Lily's hand without a word, her grip tight. She didn't even look at me. She just tugged the little girl toward them. "Thanks for watching her," Elizabeth said quickly, not meeting my eyes. "Let's go, Lily." And with that, they were gone again, disappearing into the crowd like nothing had happened, leaving me standing there with a million unanswered questions. I turned to the spot where the woman had been standing earlier, but she was nowhere in sight. Had she been real, or was I just imagining things? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, something deeper than I could understand. I had to know more, had to find out what Lily knew and why she seemed to be trying to tell me something. But now wasn't the time. I grabbed my bag, resolved to figure this out later. The questions were piling up in my head faster than I could keep track of them, but one thing was certain: I wasn't going to let this go. The rest of the day dragged on, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. That one whispered sentence, "You've been lied to," echoed in my mind over and over. And Lily's quiet, knowing stare. It unsettled me. I couldn't stop thinking about her, about what she knew and why she'd chosen me to hear it. When Harold and Elizabeth had taken Lily, they hadn't looked back. There was no mention of what had just happened, no questions about the strange behavior. It was as if they were avoiding the truth, and I was left wondering if I was just imagining things. But deep down, I knew I wasn't. That night, after I'd gotten back home, I paced my living room. The house was quiet, too quiet for my thoughts to settle. My husband, Dan, had gone to bed early, leaving me to my own thoughts. He was always like that, seemingly unaffected by things, while I was left to stew in whatever emotions came up. I kept thinking about Harold's face, his quick smiles, his attempts to brush everything off. Something wasn't right. I picked up my phone and scrolled through the few pictures I had of Lily. The family photo they'd sent a few months ago, Lily was there, standing with them, smiling like any normal child. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something in that smile wasn't real. I zoomed in on the picture, studying the way her eyes seemed too big, too knowing for a child her age. It was the same look she'd given me today. I clicked over to my messages, trying to distract myself, when I saw a text from Elizabeth. "Paula, thanks again for watching Lily today. Hope she wasn't too much trouble. Let us know if you ever need anything." It was simple, polite, like always, but for some reason, reading it sent a jolt through my body. The words felt hollow. I typed a response and deleted it a few times. My fingers hovered over the screen as I tried to come up with something that would sound casual but not too intrusive. Eventually, I settled on, "Of course, anytime. Hope everything is okay with you guys." I sent it, though I wasn't sure if I really meant it. I couldn't stop myself from looking at Lily's picture again. That unsettling feeling hadn't gone away, and no amount of messages or distractions was going to change that. Then something caught my eye, a notification on my phone, a news headline. "Local woman found missing, foul play suspected." I tapped it out of curiosity, expecting some kind of police report or vague news blurb. But what I read made my stomach drop. The article was brief, with little detail, but the name jumped out at me: Sarah Foster. I didn't recognize the name right away, but as I read further, a chill ran down my spine. The story went on to describe how Sarah had gone missing just a few days ago. She was a local woman, a few years younger than me, last seen in the same neighborhood Harold and Elizabeth lived in. The article mentioned her family's concern and that foul play was suspected. I read the article twice, then a third time. Something clicked, though I couldn't put my finger on what. Then a thought struck me, a horrifying one. What if Lily's words were a warning about something deeper? What if I wasn't just a bystander in some strange family drama? What if I was unknowingly part of something bigger, something darker? I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to know what was going on. I grabbed my purse, made sure Dan was still asleep, and walked out the door. I arrived at Harold and Elizabeth's house about an hour later. The street was quiet, the only sounds coming from the distant hum of cars passing by. Their house was one of those big, imposing ones, an old colonial with dark wood and shutters. It had always felt a little cold to me, like it held secrets I wasn't meant to know. I rang the doorbell, my heart hammering in my chest. After a few moments, Elizabeth opened the door, her expression as neutral as ever. "Paula, what's going on?" she asked, glancing behind her like she was expecting someone. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. "About Lily and about today." Elizabeth hesitated, then stepped aside to let me in. The house was just as I remembered, well decorated, but the kind of decor that always felt too perfect, like no one actually lived there. "What's this about, Paula?" Elizabeth asked, her tone colder now. I need to know what's going on with Lily and with your family. Elizabeth's eyes narrowed, and I could see the subtle shift in her posture, like she was bracing herself for something. You need to leave, Paula, she said, her voice sharp. This isn't your business. No, I shot back, feeling the tension between us. It is my business, because Lily just said something that's been bothering me all day. She said, you've been lied to. And now there's a woman missing. Is there a connection here? Elizabeth froze. Her eyes widened, and for a brief second I could see the crack in her composure. What are you talking about? There's no connection. You're imagining things. I'm not imagining things, Elizabeth, I said, stepping closer. You've been hiding something. I need to know what it is. Before she could answer, I heard a small sound from the other room, a voice. Lily? Without waiting for an invitation, I stepped past Elizabeth and walked toward the sound. There, in the living room, stood Lily. But this time, she wasn't just standing quietly. She was holding something in her hand, a photograph. And when she saw me, she whispered, "You have to find the truth." Lily stood there, holding the photograph in her small hands, staring at it like it was the most precious thing in the world. For a second, I thought maybe it was just a coincidence, a random picture. But the way she clutched it, the way her fingers were so careful, made my stomach twist with an unsettling feeling. "Lily," I said softly, taking a step toward her, my voice low. "What's that?" She didn't answer immediately. Her lips parted, but it was as though the words were stuck, trapped in her throat. Instead, she held the picture up to me, and I took it slowly from her hands, my heart racing. It was a photo of a woman. At first glance, she looked like anyone, smiling, laughing, holding a drink. But as I studied it, a chill crawled up my spine. The woman in the photo was Sarah Foster, the missing woman, the one I'd read about earlier. I turned to Elizabeth, who was still standing behind me, her face ashen, her eyes wide. "Where did Lily get this?" My voice trembled slightly. Elizabeth opened her mouth to say something, but she closed it again. For a moment, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. Then she glanced at Lily, and something passed between them. An unspoken understanding, a silent exchange I wasn't privy to. "You need to leave," Elizabeth finally said, her voice hardening. "Now." But I wasn't about to back down, not when everything inside me screamed that I was on the verge of something huge. "No," I said, my tone firm. "I need answers, Elizabeth. What's going on here? Why does Lily have a photo of Sarah Foster? Why is she acting like she knows something?" Elizabeth stepped forward quickly, blocking my view of Lily as if to shield her. "Paula, you don't understand. You have no idea what you're getting into." "I'm trying to understand," I replied, my voice sharp. "And I think you're lying. About everything." Her eyes flicked to the photograph in my hands, then to Lily, who had moved back toward the corner of the room, still watching silently. "Please," Elizabeth said quietly, her voice strained. "You don't know the whole story. There's so much you don't know. If you really want to understand, you need to talk to Harold. But not here. Not now." I shook my head. "I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what's happening. All of it." Elizabeth let out a long, defeated sigh, as if she had been holding this in for far too long. "You won't believe me. You'll think I'm crazy. But fine," she said, her voice shaking. "I'll tell you everything. But you have to promise me that you won't go to the police. Please. For Lily." My heart skipped a beat at her words. "Lily?" I repeated. "What do you mean? What's going on with her?" Elizabeth led me toward the couch and motioned for me to sit down. She sat beside me, her hands clenched in her lap. Her eyes were filled with an emotion I couldn't quite place. Fear, desperation, maybe both. "I don't even know where to start," she said, looking down. "When Lily was born, it was supposed to be a fresh start for Harold and me. We'd been through a lot. But soon after, things started to change. Lily wasn't like other children. At first, we thought it was just a phase. But then it became something more. Her eyes, there's something in them. Something that makes people feel like they've known her before, even if they've never met her." I stared at her, confused. "What are you saying? Are you telling me Lily's not normal?" Elizabeth hesitated. No, she's not. Not in the way you think. Lily, She's special, but she's also dangerous. And the people who know that, they want to use her. They want to control her." She shuddered. "And Sarah Foster, she was one of them." My mind spun, unable to keep up with her words. "What do you mean, use her?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Elizabeth turned to me, her face drawn with a kind of exhaustion I couldn't ignore. "Lily's different, Paula. She's not just a child. She can see things others can't. She's been having these visions, and it's not just imagination. It's real. She can hear things, see things from the past and the future. And because of that, people want to control her. People who would do anything to get their hands on her." I shook my head. "I can't. This doesn't make sense. How can you even believe that?" Elizabeth met my eyes. "I didn't at first. But then it started happening. Things we couldn't explain. And Sarah Foster, she was the first to try and take advantage of Lily's ability. She got close to us, pretending to be a friend, but I knew something was wrong. Sarah was using Lily to get to something deeper, and now she's gone. But not because she disappeared. She's dead, Paula." The room seemed to tilt around me. "Dead? What? How?" Elizabeth leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "We didn't know until it was too late. She tried to take Lily away, to manipulate her, and Lily. She saw it. She saw Sarah's death before it happened. She saw the moment Sarah betrayed us, the moment Sarah tried to kill her." I recoiled, feeling the weight of her words hit me like a physical blow. "Are you saying Lily killed Sarah?" Elizabeth didn't respond, but the silence answered for her. Lily had known, and now it seemed like the girl I had been watching over, the girl I thought was just a quiet child, was wrapped up in something so much darker than I could have ever imagined. "Where is Lily now?" I asked, my voice trembling. "She's safe," Elizabeth replied quickly. "For now. But you need to understand, there are people who will come after her, people who won't stop until they get what they want." "Who are these people?" I demanded. "What do they want?" Elizabeth's gaze softened with a kind of sorrow. "I don't know, Paula, but I know they'll never stop. And if you care about Lily, even if you don't understand what's happening, you'll help us keep her safe." I stood up abruptly, feeling like the ground beneath me had shifted entirely. "I can't just walk away from this," I said, my voice full of determination. "I don't know what's going on, but I'm not leaving until I find out what happened to Sarah, and how Lily fits into all of this." Elizabeth stood too, her face pleading. "You can't. You don't know what they're capable of." But I wasn't backing down. I couldn't. Too much was at stake. Too many unanswered questions. "I'll find out the truth," I said, my voice steady. "And I'll protect Lily, no matter what." The moment I stepped out of Elizabeth's house, the air felt heavier. The night was thick with tension, and the streetlights above flickered like they were uncertain whether they should stay on or go dark. The photograph of Sarah Foster that Lily had given me burned a hole in my pocket. It felt like I was holding on to something much larger than just a piece of paper. It was like holding a secret, something I wasn't supposed to know, and yet, now that I had seen it, I couldn't unsee it. I needed to get answers, and the only person who could give me those answers was Harold. But I couldn't go back to Elizabeth's house. Not yet. I needed to think. I needed a plan. I took a deep breath and dialed Dan's number. The phone rang a few times before he picked up. "Hello? Dan, I need to talk to you," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Is everything okay?" He sounded groggy, like he had just woken up. "What's going on?" "I'm not sure," I said, pacing up and down the sidewalk. "But I need you to listen. I think there's something wrong with Lily. Something much bigger than I thought. And it's connected to this woman, Sarah Foster, who's gone missing. I need to figure this out." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could almost hear the gears turning in his mind. "Wait," Dan said slowly, his voice full of disbelief. "Are you telling me that you think Lily is somehow involved with Sarah's disappearance? That she has some kind of power?" "I don't know," I admitted, my voice cracking. "But there's something going on, Dan. Something that I can't explain. I need your help." He was quiet for a moment longer, then sighed. "All right, I'll be there in an hour. but you need to be careful, Paula. Don't do anything reckless." "I won't," I said, but I didn't know if I could promise that. The more I learned, the more I felt the pull towards something dangerous, something I wasn't sure I could control. I ended the call and looked around. The streets were quiet, but I could still feel the weight of the truth pressing down on me. I needed to get to Harold's office. I needed to confront him and get him to tell me the truth, once and for all. Harold's office wasn't far from Elizabeth's house, and by the time I arrived, I had already worked myself up into a frenzy. The tall glass building loomed above me, its sterile exterior a stark contrast to the chaos I felt inside. I stepped inside and approached the receptionist. She barely glanced up at me, too focused on her computer screen to be bothered. "I need to speak to Harold," I said, my voice tight. The receptionist didn't respond right away, but she finally looked up, her face unreadable. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked, her tone flat. "No, but this is important. It's about his daughter," I said, my heart pounding in my chest. "Please, just tell him I'm here." She eyed me for a long moment before nodding and picking up the phone. After what felt like an eternity, Harold appeared, his face stiff and guarded. He looked exactly like I remembered, tall, well-dressed, and always with that unsettling air of someone who had a lot to hide. "Paula," he said, his voice cool, like he hadn't just seen me hours ago at his house. "What are you doing here?" "I need answers," I said, stepping forward. "About Lily, about Sarah, and about what's really going on." Harold's expression didn't change, but I could see his eyes flicker for a second, as if he was calculating whether or not to tell me the truth. "I told you before, Paula," he said, his voice low and measured. "There's nothing to worry about. Lily is just a child." "A child?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You're lying, Harold. I've seen the way she looks at people. I've heard the things she says. She's not just a normal child, and you know it." He stiffened, his jaw tightening. For a moment I thought he might walk away, but then he sighed, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "Fine," he said, his voice finally betraying a crack in his composure. "You want the truth, Paula? Here it is." He glanced around like he was making sure no one could overhear us before he motioned for me to follow him into a small conference room in the back. Once the door closed, he leaned against the table and folded his arms, looking at me like he was deciding how much to reveal. "Lily's not like other children," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're right. She has abilities, but not in the way you think. She can see things, things that are hidden, the past, the future. She's not just observing the world, Paula. She's affecting it." I stared at him, my breath caught in my throat. "What are you saying? That Lily is some kind of psychic?" He nodded slowly. "Something like that. But it's more complicated than that. She's been able to see things since she was very young. And over the years, we've come to realize that she's a danger to herself and others if she's not controlled. That's why we had to keep it hidden, why we tried to make everything look normal." My mind was racing, trying to piece everything together. "But why Sarah? Why would she be involved with Lily?" Harold's face darkened. "Sarah was trying to manipulate Lily's abilities. She wasn't just a missing person. She was part of a larger operation. People who are trying to exploit children like Lily for their own gain. They want to use their powers for control, for power." Are you saying Sarah was going to use Lily?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Exactly," Harold said grimly. "Sarah thought she could control Lily, but Lily saw through her. She saw Sarah's intentions, she saw everything. And that's why Sarah's dead." I took a step back, my mind reeling. But Lily she couldn't have." Harold's eyes met mine. "You don't understand, Paula. Lily didn't kill Sarah in the way you think. But her powers, her ability to see things, can affect people in ways they don't understand. And Sarah's attempt to use Lily's abilities, it triggered something inside her, something that we've been trying to control for years." I stood there, frozen, as everything I thought I knew shattered. This wasn't just about a missing woman or a family secret. It was about something far bigger, something much darker. And Lily, she was at the center of it all. The weight of Harold's words hung heavy in the air, thickening the atmosphere around me. My head swam with a dizzying mix of disbelief and fear. Lily, Harold's little girl wasn't just a child, wasn't just the quiet, sweet girl I had come to know. She was something far more dangerous, and I couldn't ignore the reality that I had just walked into a situation that I wasn't prepared for. "I don't believe you," I said, my voice shaky but firm. I wasn't sure if I was trying to convince him or myself. "There's no way Lily could have caused someone's death, not on purpose." Harold's gaze softened, but only slightly. He looked tired, like the weight of everything was pressing down on him. He ran a hand through his hair, his brow furrowing as he took a slow breath. "I wish it weren't true, Paula," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "But Lily isn't like other kids. She doesn't just see things. She feels them. She feels the emotions and the intentions of others. And sometimes she can't stop herself from reacting." "Reacting?" I repeated, taking a step closer. "What do you mean by that?" "Lily's powers aren't just psychic," Harold continued, his voice dropping to a near whisper, like he was afraid someone might hear. "They're emotional, too. When she sees something she doesn't like, when she sees someone trying to hurt her, it's like she can make it stop. But it doesn't always happen in a way we can control. Sarah was manipulating her, trying to make her think she was helping her, and Lily saw right through it. She didn't even know what she was doing, but she stopped Sarah from hurting us." "By killing her?" I said, my throat tight, struggling to make sense of the words. Harold closed his eyes, swallowing hard. "I didn't want to believe it either, Paula. But when Sarah died, it wasn't just a random accident. It was something Lily triggered. She didn't mean to. She was just trying to protect herself. But the result was the same." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Everything was spiraling so fast. "So what now? You're telling me you've been hiding this power of hers for how long? And now you expect me to just sit back and pretend everything's fine?" Harold's eyes flashed with frustration, but there was something else there too. A deep sadness. "I didn't know what to do, Paula. We've been trying to protect her, to control her abilities, but people like Sarah, they won't stop. They won't let her go." "Who are these people?" I demanded. "Who's behind all this? Why does Sarah think she could control her in the first place?" Harold's face went pale, his lips trembling slightly, as if the words were too dangerous to speak. "It's not just about Lily. There are others like her, children with abilities hidden away from the world. They're being used by organizations, powerful groups that want to control them. They want to use their gifts to manipulate the world, to create power and influence. Sarah was just one of many who tried to exploit that." The room seemed to close in on me. My thoughts raced as I processed everything I had just learned. "You're saying this is bigger than just Lily and Sarah? That there are more kids like her?" Harold nodded grimly. "There's a network, Paula. A network that has been operating in the shadows for years. I don't know who's behind it, but I know they're dangerous. And they're coming for her. They'll come for us all." I felt my knees weaken as the enormity of the situation settled in. "And you've been hiding Lily away from all of this, trying to keep her safe?" "We thought we were," Harold said softly, his eyes filled with regret. "But now I'm afraid it's too late." I swallowed, the knot in my throat tightening. I could feel the tension rising in the pit of my stomach. "So what do we do now? How do we stop this? How do we protect Lily?" Harold shook his head, his hands trembling. "I don't know. But I'm going to try. I'm going to find out who's behind all this and stop them before they get to her, before they get to us." I looked at him, and for the first time, I saw the weight of the fear in his eyes. This wasn't just about protecting Lily anymore. This was about survival. Suddenly, the door to the conference room opened with a sharp click. Elizabeth stepped inside, her eyes wide with panic. "You need to leave," she said urgently, her voice high-pitched. "They're coming. They're already here." My heart skipped a beat. Who's coming?" Before Elizabeth could answer, there was a loud crash from down the hallway. The sound echoed through the building, sharp and jarring. Then, the unmistakable sound of boots hitting the floor. Rapid, heavy footsteps coming closer. "We don't have time," Elizabeth said, her voice trembling. "They've found us. You need to go. Now." Harold and I exchanged a glance, and in that moment, everything changed. This wasn't just about Lily anymore. This was about survival, about fighting back. "We're not running," I said, my voice hardening with determination. "We're not going anywhere until we know who's behind this." But just as I finished speaking, the door burst open. Figures in black tactical gear stormed into the room, their weapons raised, eyes scanning every corner. "Hands where we can see them," one of them barked. I froze. The air in the room went cold, everything slowed, my heartbeat thudding in my ears. I looked at Harold. His face was ashen. He knew who they were. "Harold," I said quietly, "who are they?" Harold didn't answer. Instead, he stepped forward, his eyes narrowing with resolve. "They're the ones who've been pulling the strings. And now they're here for Lily." The last thing I saw before everything went black was the cold glint of a weapon aimed at me. I woke up in a sterile, dimly lit room, my body aching and disoriented. I could hear voices, muffled, somewhere outside the room. My hands were bound, but it didn't matter. I had made a promise. To Lily, to Harold, to myself. I wasn't going to let them win. They were coming for us, but I was going to stop them. Before it was too late,